The global super elites taking the stage at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland this week. This is the annual gathering of the world's wealthiest people, most successful elites. It's normally dominated by conversations about climate change and world hunger, but this year it's something a little different. Anti-establishment and anti-globalist politics have spread across Europe and the United States, and they are calling this the so-called Davos class, which has been put on watch with news of Britain's exit from the EU and the election of Donald Trump.
China's president is leading the globalists against Trump. Yeah, he is. What did Xi Jinping say?
Chinese President Xi Jinping is on a mission to convince world leaders that he's a champion of globalization. He's a key speaker as the World Economic Forum gets underway in Davos. Xi is the first Chinese leader to address the World Economic Forum. In the wake of Donald Trump's election in the US and Britain's vote to leave the EU, he wants to send a key message. China is committed to free trade and global economic integration, and that's despite being accused of protectionism and nationalism in recent years.
Protectionism, populism and deglobalization are on the rise. It's not good for closer economic cooperation globally.
China has played an ever-increasing role in the global economy since joining the World Trade Organization in 2001. It's currently negotiating a regional free trade agreement with ASEAN member states, Australia and India, a deal which is seen as an alternative to the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement, which President-elect Donald Trump says he will tear up as soon as he takes office. China is also hoping to revive the historic Silk Road trade route between its own borders and Europe through a series of infrastructure projects spanning 3 continents and 60 countries.
The Philippines defense minister calls China's alleged installation of weapons in the disputed territories in the South China Sea very troubling. In a statement issued Tuesday, January 17th, Delfin Lorenzana said, quote, "They do not square with the Chinese government's rhetoric that its purpose is peaceful and friendly." A U.S. think tank recently reported China appeared to have put anti-aircraft and anti-missile weapons on its man-made islands there.
Russian President Vladimir Putin weighed in today on the current controversy surrounding the election of Donald Trump. Putin had choice words for those behind the effort to discredit the president-elect.
Speaking at a press conference in Moscow with the president of Moldova, Putin stated he believed there is a decisive effort to undermine the election of Donald Trump.
People who are ordering this kind of fake, which is now being distributed against the president-elect, are fabricating them and using them in political battle. They're worse than prostitutes. They have no moral restrictions.
Meanwhile, the issue of fake news came up during a briefing with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov.
These are the convulsions of those who understand that their time has passed. It's not possible anymore to promote liberal, permissive values in every possible sphere. That's because serious people want to deal with solving the real problems of their own countries instead. The time for demagogues in foreign politics has gone, and that hurts them. That's why fake news is being fabricated.
Lavrov said he welcomes and invites Donald Trump to be part of the peace talks in Syria. Talks are scheduled to be held in Kazakhstan, and Iran has already started and stated that they don't want the United States in the peace talks.
Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has strong words for President-elect Donald Trump over the Iran nuclear deal. On Tuesday, January 17th, Rouhani said President-elect Trump cannot cancel the nuclear deal signed by multiple world powers in July 2015. He also says talk of renegotiation is meaningless. At a news conference, Rouhani said Trump's words were, quote, empty talk, adding that he's optimistic about the future of the deal.
Today, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Moscow is willing to talk to U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's new administration about nuclear weapons. This comes as Trump suggested an end to sanctions against Russia if Moscow agrees to reduce its nuclear arsenal.
Speaking to reporters, Lavrov added that such a dialogue could cover hypersonic weapons, a U.S. missile shield in Europe, space weapons, and nuclear testing. After the U.S. president-elect takes office, he said that Russia was ready to meet with Donald Trump's administration to discuss these issues.
The president-elect has his own harsh words about several European world leaders, and with Trump's apparent warming relationship with the Russian president, many in Europe don't like the possibility of a Trump-Putin relationship.
European leaders have been left angered and bemused following U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's slamming of the continent's migrant policy. With just 3 days until Trump officially taking office, former French Prime Minister Manuel Valls, who's now running for the presidency in France this year, called the incoming U.S. leader's remarks a declaration of war.
This is a provocation and a declaration of war with Europe from the President of the United States.
For every measure that is reflected in it, there is a discriminatory element to it. And the discrimination does disproportionately impact Muslims, people perceived to be Muslim, foreigners, migrants, and refugees. And what we see in Europe right now is it's not a debate, it's more of a narrative. And the narrative is that if you are Muslim, or if you are a refugee or a migrant, you are a threat.
Of refugees and aid workers were killed and hundreds reportedly wounded in northeastern Nigeria after a Nigerian Air Force fighter jet targeting Boko Haram extremists bombed their camp, mistaking it for a legitimate target. In a rare admission, the Nigerian military said it accidentally ordered the strike on Ran in Borno State on Tuesday. Aid group Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, has said that its team's seen at least 52 bodies. Other reports suggest over 100 victims. MSF teams are working throughout the night in difficult conditions, trying to stabilize the hundreds they believe to have been hurt.
Been very frightening developments in the eastern province of Deir ez-Zor near the Iraqi border in Syria over the last few days. ISIS have been making massive advances there, threatening the estimated 120,000 civilians that live in the last government-controlled part of Deir ez-Zor city that has been besieged now since 2014. They succeeded in cutting that last government-held patch of the city in two and severed the military airbase from the rest of the city. Now, that airbase is the only way that the Syrian government can deliver supplies to those trapped civilians and pro-government forces there. Now helicopters are unable to land in that airbase, unable to deliver food and medical supplies to civilians, and also unable to deliver reinforcements to pro-government forces there. So if the soldiers that are currently there don't manage to hold out, then ISIS will be able to overrun the city, and there's great fears that they will commit atrocities against the civilians that have been living under government rule there and against pro-government forces.
Jeff, I want to ask you, though, right when I get hooked on self-driving cars, you're now going to tell us that this is old news because Airbus is planning on making a flying self-driving car by the end of the year. What's this about?
Yeah, I had to read that twice also because we can barely kind of get the autonomous cars that are on the ground rocking and rolling. Yeah, I think this is kind of just like a headline attention grabber. To the concept of introducing a self-driving flying car is so foreign and out of control. Think about the entire Department of Transportation. Think about the existing infrastructure. Like, on what planet would this be a feasible sort of thing to do? I think this is just maybe like a proof of concept that Airbus has been floating around. They claim they have the ability to do this. I don't think they're not going to make this. I think we might see this at shows like CES or maybe some sort of auto show. But the notion of this entering reality in a way that you and I understand cars or even self-driving cars, I would not hold my breath for something like this.
I mean, they say they're going to do this by the end of 2017.
Yeah.
That seems kind of rushed.
The North Dakota Army National Guard has deployed 2 surface-to-air missile launchers near a main work site for the Dakota Access Pipeline. Protesters saw one of the Avenger missile systems Monday and posted videos and photos to Facebook. North Dakota Guard spokesman William Prokopik said the missile tubes aren't loaded. He said, "These systems have observation capabilities and are used strictly in the observation role to protect private property and public safety. There's no authority to arm them." He said the 2 Avengers have been at the site of the drill pad for over a month without issue.
North Dakota lawmakers are proposing new legislation that could make life tough for any future protesters there. That legislation includes an exemption if motorists accidentally injure or kill a protester by running over them on the road.
Spurred by months of unrest in the state, GOP legislators in North Dakota are suggesting changes to the state's protest laws, among which could be criminalization of road protests in general, making wearing a mask by an adult a crime, and exempting drivers from unintentionally killing or injuring a protester on a road or a highway. The latter was crafted by GOP Representative Keith Kempenich after his 72-year-old mother-in-law was blocked by protesters waving signs on a roadway. The state's Republican chair, Kelly Armstrong, who's also believed to be closely connected to oil industry, justified the tougher protest laws in a statement saying when people are having their lives disrupted, you're going to see things move up here. It's very difficult to write protest laws. We need to make sure, he said, there's a reasonable application of the law in all circumstances, whether protest related or not.
A new report estimates that 8 billionaires own the same wealth as half the world's population. The Oxfam report was released on Monday, January 16th, during the annual World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Including 6 Americans, the 8 richest people in the world are worth $426 billion. The report estimated the world's poorest 3.7 billion people together own about $17 billion less than that amount. Oxfam CEO Mark Goldring called this view of world inequality, quote, beyond grotesque. He added, quote, while 1 in 9 people on the planet will go to bed hungry tonight, a small handful of billionaires have so much wealth they would need several lifetimes to spend it. The billionaires are Microsoft's Bill Gates, Zara's Monaco Ortega, investor Warren Buffett, Mexican tycoon Carlos Slim Elu, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, Oracle's Larry Ellison, and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
As President Obama prepares to leave office, he will be leaving Washington a very rich man. According to a study from American University, both the President and First Lady Michelle Obama could make up to $242 million after they leave the White House. During his 2 terms in office, Obama has made an annual salary of $400,000, a paycheck President-elect Donald Trump has said he will not accept. That, along with an annual expense account, a non-taxable travel account, and an entertainment budget, make up the president's annual take-in. According to CelebrityNetWorth.com, the president currently has a net worth of $12.2 million. First Lady Michelle Obama is close with a net worth of $11.8 million. According to Business Insider, a lot of Obama's wealth has been amassed from multi-book deals, royalties, and investments.
People are suffering through the 3rd severe flood in less than 2 weeks in Argentina's Santa Fe province. In total, they've had up to 800 millimeters of rain in a month in some parts, more than the region would normally get in a year.
The rain began this morning around 6 o'clock and it rained all day.
While some residents tried to clear their homes of the rising water, others got stuck on a national highway as traffic became blocked by the flood. The fire services stepped in to evacuate hundreds of people, some who'd been trapped in their homes, even as the fire station became inundated with water. For some people, the only solution was to strip off, get wet, and try to save their belongings.
Some 5,000 people have been affected by nonstop torrential rains in the Visayas and Mindanao regions of the Philippines as of Tuesday, January 17th. Areas in regions 8 and 10, particularly Cagayan de Oro, have been under heavy downpours since Monday. With rains pouring for about 3 hours straight, several areas were submerged to neck-deep floods, killing at least 7 people and displacing thousands. Cagayan de Oro was declared under a state of calamity by early Tuesday. According to the Department of Social Welfare Development, approximately 950 families have been displaced and relocated to 16 evacuation centers. Region 10 DSWD Director Nestor Ramos said the region has enough resources to supply evacuees with a 7 million peso standby fund. The Philippines' Weather Bureau said on Tuesday that the regions should brace for more rains due to the low pressure area and the tail of the cold front.
Mammals can change their habits and personality if they are hurt, shocked, or their brain changes for whatever reason. Shocking an animal in the right place has helped treat depression and inhibit moral reasoning in humans. Scientists have found that it can also turn an animal into a killer. Neurobiologist Ivan de Araujo at Yale University came across a study that showed the amygdala was active when rats were eating or tracking prey. The doctor used lasers to mess with rat brains, known as optogenetics, to alter their memories and controlling when they feel thirst.
When it comes to creatures that snack on our blood without our consent, anything bigger than a mosquito is just not okay. Well, friends, vampire bats are apparently living up to their name and feeding on humans in Brazil. Before now, it was thought that these bloodthirsty flying mammals only fed on birds. But researchers from the Federal University of Pernambuco in Recife are bringing our childhood nightmares to life. After analyzing fecal samples from a colony of hairy-legged vampire bats in northeast Brazil's Canimbau National Park, the team discovered traces of human DNA. This is strange since this particular species isn't adapted to feed on the blood of mammals. These results, which were published in the journal Acta Chiropterologica, suggest the bats are getting resourceful as humans encroach on their territory, causing deforestation and hunting of the bats' typical prey. Researchers now worry about how this will affect the spread of disease.
A virgin birth coming from an endangered species. A female zebra shark living in an Australian aquarium shocked scientists when it gave birth to offspring without the use of a male. The highly unusual instance of asexual births has been recorded as a survival tactic found in certain sharks, rays, and reptiles after being contained in isolation. But given that this female shark had previously given birth to pups with a male partner before their separation, Leonie here is only the third recorded instance of a vertebrae switching from sexual to asexual. Even more amazing, Leonie managed to make the change just 3 years after becoming isolated. If you can't have friends, make them. So why keep the men around? According to the biologist behind the study, the genetic diversity of animals gets greatly reduced using this reproductive method. Long term, they need to diversify to help them adapt to their environment. The next phase of the research will be able to see if Leonie's pups will be able to produce offspring themselves after maturation, an even more unusual feat.
Now, here's one of those great stories when science comes forward to support events that took place thousands of years ago in complete accordance with biblical accounts.
University researchers in Israel say they can prove there was a solar eclipse that proves what's written in chapter 10 of the book of Joshua. The Bible tells us that soon after the Israelites entered the promised land, Joshua prayed to God to help them in their epic battle, to protect the Gibeonites by stopping the sun. The passage reads, "Then Joshua spoke to the Lord on the day when the Lord delivered the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still upon Gibeon, and you, moon, in the valley of Alialon." That's Joshua 10:12. The multidisciplinary Israeli team says this account is unique because even though other ancient stories refer to the sun stopping, this is the only one that also mentions the moon. This led them to believe the event was a solar eclipse that happens when the moon blocks sunlight by passing between the sun and the earth. By applying data from NASA, the experts discovered there was only one such total solar eclipse in the region between the years 1500 to 1000 BCE. They say the evidence is clear that Joshua led the Israelites to victory on the 30th of October in the year 1207 before the Common Era. And because science is so exact, we know it happened precisely at 4:28 in the afternoon. You can read more about this fascinating development in the scientist's research paper, which was just published in the most recent edition of the Beit Mikra Journal for the Study of the Bible and its World.
God's watching out for me.
Well, guys, this is an absolutely incredible story. We're standing in the exact location where this accident happened yesterday. You can see that the water is moving rather quickly. It's about 15 feet deep at the center of this canal. I've covered many fatals here over the years, and everyone involved yesterday is just grateful that this story had a happy ending.
I'm so lucky, to start, but
61-year-old Bradley Anderson is grateful to be alive.
Anyway, God's watching out for me.
On Monday, Brad, who is diabetic, blacked out while behind the wheel of his minivan. Darius Perkins was going in the opposite direction on Peabody Road at the same time.
It crossed across my lane. It had to be about 10 or 15 yards away from me, and then it drove right into the canal right there. And I saw the water splash up.
Without really thinking, Darius pulled off to the side of the road and literally jumped into action.
I jumped into the water, and the water was moving. I didn't realize how deep it was.
But Bradley was incoherent and unable to free himself.
But I was confused. I didn't know where I was. Didn't understand why water was there.
The fast-moving current started to move the minivan down the canal.
As I turned, I saw the wall where the support beam is for the actual bridge, and I just kind of rode it into the wall, and it stopped.
Firefighters got there in a matter of minutes. This video says it all. Not an easy task, but a successful one.
If the vehicle was another 2 or 3 feet the other way, it probably would have been fully submerged, and it's just kind of lucky the way it ended up on the bank and that we were able to get to him.
It's neat to see these because, like you said, some of the time, we don't have the same ending.
I thank you to everyone that was involved in the rescue.
Awful brave of a citizen who puts their own life in harm's way to rescue somebody else.
That guy who risked his own life to jump in and save somebody when he doesn't have to. And I believe if it wasn't for him, my dad wouldn't be here today. So I just want to thank him, and I want to meet him.